Hello everybody, I am Hoarder Gamer, and this is Hoarder's Comic Flex. I hope you had a good week, and I hope the content of this show doesn't take your current week, whatever time you're watching this, and just put it in a shitter. I'm hoping it doesn't happen, so I'll try to make this a very good episode. I try every week. Sometimes I succeed. So, as usual, we've got gaming news, we've got comic books, we're going to toy around a bit, and then look at the very near future of comic books. Yes, let's see. A good week. Other spelling, I would say. The other spelling. So, first off, we have Gamescom. And Gamescom is probably the biggest thing happening in gaming right now because there's a ton of information. And unusual for me, when there's a big convention like this, there's maybe one or two pieces of information I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Gamescom has been really good this year. I'm actually worried that it raised the level of Gamescom to something that future years won't be able to touch. So they started out with a minute-and-a-half trailer on Gamescom Opening Night Live with Jeff Keighley, and it was for Borderlands 4. I'm a big Borderlands fan. I'm not going to say I'm a fanatic. One is very frustrating for me. The first Borderlands I find really frustrating, and there are some bosses in the second one which I had to fight numerous times. And I didn't like the whole mechanic called slag. Slag was basically this purple sludge that you had to cover an enemy with in order to weaken them. So then you would swap to yet another weapon. So you have to have slag-based weapons, right? And then you have to go to a non-slag weapon in order to damage and defeat the enemy. And I just found that a bit frustrating. Not as much as the challenge that the first Borderlands was. That was incredibly rough at times. I remember this one dude, I think his name's Nine Toes or something like that. And it took me 10 times to kill him. I kept getting super close, but he had all these ads and everything, and my weapons felt ineffective, and it was rough. It was rough. But I do really like Borderlands 2. Handsome Jack, I think, is a great character. I also like Borderlands 3, and I thought that Tiny Tina Wonderlands was excellent, except for the DLC. As I've said before, the DLC didn't quite cut it. The DLC for Borderlands 2 and 3 was great. Story-based DLC, interesting characters, new locales. But for whatever reason, they decided to just have kind of a boss, not quite as difficult as a raid boss, but a boss, and then toss that boss into a series of random dungeons. That was their idea for DLC. They did add another class, but once I beat the campaign, at that point, I was not interested. I think it was 6 months later in the new class that they added. I'm sure I'll replay Tiny Tina Wonderlands because I really did like it the first time. I thought it was really good. And I'd like to play with another class. So, yeah. I'd have more to say then, after the experience of doing it yet again. So, that was a huge announcement, and I was shocked. It was the first thing, I think, that they had at the opening night live for Gamescom, okay? Well, that wasn't all they announced at Gamescom. So, one of the things I'm really, really looking forward to, and if you know me, you probably know this, Diablo 4, one of my favorite games of last year, and still one of my favorite games this year, and we're getting an expansion called The Vessel of Hatred. Not the Vessel of Puppies, not the Vessel of Good Vibes, the Vessel of Hatred, okay? And they announced mercenaries. And there were rumors that mercenaries might come to the game, but then they kind of like blew everyone's mind with how they are going to handle mercenaries in Diablo 4. And I'll contrast how mercenaries were in Diablo 3. I think they used the term followers. And then how mercenaries were, they were called mercenaries in Diablo 2. So basically you have 4 unique and just quite interesting characters you're able to recruit. But like in Diablo 3, you had someone that was kind of like a paladin, you had a sorceress, and then you had an archer. And the archer, I think, of all the characters is the most interesting because his name was Lyndon, and he was a rogue. So he did things in a very rogue way, and it wasn't quite like he was a villain, but it skirted the line of what your player character was willing to do. And it very much pushes that in Diablo 4 when you come across Lyndon. That was a really cool treat. One of the side missions involves him. So I thought that was great. So these 4 unique mercenaries, I bet you want to know a little bit more about them. Okay, so first up you have a shield bearer named Rahir. Rahir is the first of the mercenaries that you meet. And basically he can do this cool thing where he puts up like a shield bubble and protects you from damage. And it's similar to a legendary ability that your character can get in Diablo 4. So that looked pretty neat. I don't know exactly the details because I didn't share that. But in Diablo 4, when you have it on a legendary ability, it basically protects you from any damage within that bubble. So even if the enemies come into the bubble with you to attack, they will not hurt you for anywhere between 3 to 6 seconds, depending on what kind of role you have for that legendary item. Okay, so next up, this is where things get even more interesting with these mercenaries, okay? This is where we start to go a little bit off the rails, and things get exciting. Okay, we have Sabu, a drunken archer who will offer utility support. So a drunken archer. I think it would be funny as if randomly, you know, Sabu just missed the target because they're drunk off their ass. And if you're thinking like, wait, why have a negative element like that? Just wait till I get to the 4th mercenary. Okay, now we go to Variana, a berserker crone, and she has a massacre meter. So you have to massacre enough enemies, and then her skills become far more powerful by massacring a ton of enemies. And then you have my favorite, and I think the most interesting mercenary. It's a demon child named Aldekin. And Aldekin is a magic user who transforms from human to a demon form. And this is where things get interesting. There is a negative to Aldekin. There's a 33% chance that the little boy is going to turn into the demon, okay? I'm sorry, no, when the boy turns into the demon, there's a 33% chance he will open up a rift in hell and an elite demon will come with him. So then you and Aldekin have to briefly fight an elite demon randomly. I thought that was pretty wild, and I'm really excited to see these mercenaries. I like that they didn't go, for the most part, with just regular templates. I think they went pretty interesting with 2 of these classes, Aldekin specifically. Also, too, Variana, the Berserker Crone, is a former cannibal. So, heaven only knows how that works in the story, but yeah, I think that's going to be really neat. I'm looking forward to it. Okay. And then we have the Kurast Undercity. So they announced a lot of things for Diablo 4. It wasn't just like one thing. It was a lot. So a plague grows deep in the belly of Kurast, and a sickness it will devour Nahantu if it's left unchecked. And it's basically a multi-stage dungeon, so like multi-floors, and it's time attack. So you have a limited amount of time to do it. So that's going to be interesting. I look forward to seeing exactly what that means. It sounds similar actually to the original Diablo game, because the original Diablo is like a 15, 16 floor dungeon, and you just go lower and lower and lower until I believe in that one you do actually face off against Diablo. And then, that's like the end. And that dungeon is like either right in town or just slightly outside of town. And that was the game. There wasn't a huge explorable open world or anything in the first Diablo. It was just one big dungeon of like 15 or 16 floors. So this almost sounds a little bit something like that. Give everybody that kind of vibe and feel. So you basically have to clear the streets of the Karast Undercity. So I think that's going to be really cool. And we also have the Dark Citadel. And the Dark Citadel is basically you're fighting the Khazra. And the Khazra are trying to bring their god back. And you have to go in a raid type experience. It's not really called a raid, but it's a co-op. And you use coordination and teamwork in order to get through it. And it sounds really neat. Very different than like anything we've seen in Diablo. Like the closest I would say would be a world boss in Diablo 4. But like you really don't technically need coordination. You could just attack it. Most people who are fighting the world boss in Diablo 4 are not, communicating with headsets. It's like 10 random people fighting this giant monster. And every week, there's going to be new rewards for doing the Dark Citadel. So I think that's going to be really cool. And if you're like, wait, I have no friends. First off, that's a terrible thing to say about me. It's not very nice. No. No. There's a friend finder now, a party finder that they have added to the game. Something people have wanted since launch is finally coming to the game, and not only will it help with the Dark Citadel, you can set it up to look for people doing just about any activity in the game, as well as you can be like, hey, I'm going to do this dungeon. Who wants to join me in this dungeon? So it sounds pretty full-featured, and I'm looking forward to it. And that's going to be launching with the Vessel of Hatred and Season 6, which all launch on October 8th. Plus, if you happen to like cosmetics, there were angel wings you could get if you pre-order the Deluxe or Ultimate Edition. They have now announced demon wings. They're like fiery, and they look really nice, actually, if you pre-order the Deluxe or Ultimate Edition of the Vessel of Hatred expansion. So, and keep in mind, if you happen to have Game Pass, Diablo 4 is a part of Game Pass. It's included. And if you have Game Pass, you get 10% off. So you get 10% off the expansion. So I thought that was pretty cool too, actually. Okay. I believe that's everything for Diablo 4. I don't think I got any more Diablo 4 stuff. Oh, actually, no, this is pretty big news for it, actually. So they introduced tempering, which lets you take an item and basically you roll an affix onto it from a choice of 3 or 4 affixes. And it really increases the amount of power you have as a player. The problem is, though, especially in endgame, you could have a really good piece and you could brick it. Basically, that means that when you temper, you only had like 3 chances to temper, and then I believe there's 1 gimme. Basically like, oh, we're going to be nice and give you a 4th attempt. Well, when you brick the item's not destroyed. You can technically use it, but it's going to have some affix on it that isn't great for your build. So it is pretty much unusable in endgame if you're playing, balls to the wall crazy, What I'm talking about right now doesn't really reflect the, situation if you're like playing casually. But a lot of Diablo players do not play casually. So, they have introduced the Scroll of Retempering, and you'll be able to get that in a number of different activities in Diablo 4. What it does, it gives you those 3 attempts again to retemper the item each time you use the scroll. So I think that's a really good thing. Can I do cool Fortnite-like dances in the game? Maybe that'll be Season 7. The Lord of the Dance. Well, it's Diablo, so it'd be like Season 7 Dark Lord of the Dance. Maybe that's what they would do. Okay. Now, another huge announcement that has me excited and also has a lot of people upset. I'm not upset about it, I'll tell you why. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, December 9th. So yes, everybody, it does come out on Xbox this year, December 9th, and there will be an early access. I believe if you purchase the deluxe edition, you'll be able to play December 6th. Okay, they also announced something that was cool, the Order of Giants story DLC, which is coming in 2025. So it sounds like really meaty story DLC, similar to the expansion that's going to come to Starfield. So it should be really good. Okay, so I'm looking forward to not only the game now, but it's probably going to be, I'm guessing, a 6 to 10 hour expansion that lets me play as Indiana Jones more in 2025. Okay, so this is where people are getting salty and have been upset. The game is also going to hit PS5 roughly 6 months after launch, and that's considered to be a new game release strategy for Xbox, according to Phil Spencer. So right now, I'm going to make the magic guess that next year, by Christmas time, you'll be able to play Avowed on PlayStation 5. Because we know Avowed got pushed back to February of next year. So my theory is that by Christmas of 2025, which would be like what, 9-10 months later, by that time period, if not sooner, you'll be playing Avowed on PS5. I think games have just gotten too expensive, and I think companies are looking at the amount of install base they need for a game in order for it to be successful. One of the things that happen is game development, instead of taking, I've talked about this before too, instead of taking 3 to 5 years to make a AAA game, now it's 5 to 7 years. And instead of having your game and then a sequel during one console lifetime, you're getting one game out there. You know? You're not getting 2, you're not getting 3, you're probably getting 1 during an entire lifetime on the console. So, because of that, it would seem to have those giant, insane budgets, unless you're making like Grand Theft Auto 6. Although, there we go. That's per, console generation. Let's see. Shouldn't it be salty? Game Pass users play the game at no additional cost. PlayStation players pay $70 to play a single game. Yes, but I think that it's going to be an awesome experience playing this game, because what I didn't get to in Indiana Jones is that Machine Games is their largest and most in-depth game yet. And people that have tried it at Gamescom and have gotten like information from the devs have said there's a lot more to the game than they expected. So I'm very excited, because I would not say that Wolfenstein, which they made, and Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, those were not short games by any stretch of the imagination. Those are roughly 12 to 15 hour first-person shooters with cinema, story, all sorts of elements to it. You'd probably want to replay it. They're really good games, and I'm going to be very happy to try out their take on Indiana Jones. So that's one of the main games I'm looking forward to this year. one of the things I'm most excited by. Game development costs so much they need to make money back before the next project can get okayed. Yeah, I believe that. And then if development on a AAA game takes 5 to 7 years, you know, that really puts them back quite a bit. Like, look how long it took for them to announce Borderlands 4. They obviously had, like, their main team working on it during Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. That was supposed to be a secondary team that did that game, and I think they knocked it out of the ballpark except for the DLC. But yeah, I mean, these games now take 5 to 7 years. In fact, Grand Theft Auto 5, wasn't that actually 2013? Wasn't that technically like a PS3 and 360 game at first? And then it got a port to PS4 and Xbox One? So now it could be 2 generations to release your sequel. Although, that's really not normal to go by that game because of the online component of it and how popular that became. So, you know. But yeah, I mean, supposedly Grand Theft Auto 6 has a $2 billion budget, and they expect to make that back with extra, like, through pre-orders and launch day. So, okay, another big piece of information. Okay, another, like, announcement. Marvel Rivals will launch on December 6th. Okay? And I see that as a license to print money. Because people love Marvel. People love these character designs. I love just about all of them. One of the only issues I have is Magneto has this, like, all gray outfit, and I want him in the red outfit. So I'm obviously going to get a red cosmetic for his outfit. So, but everything else I think looks amazing, including who I'll talk about that they showed off just, I believe it was yesterday. So, launches on December 6th. All playable heroes and villains are available at no extra cost. So, you're just looking at Season Pass or Battle Pass and cosmetics. And some of the cosmetics apparently seem to be earned in-game. So, there's that too. But to me, it's most important that we aren't playing for the characters. I thought the cost for heroes and villains, looking at other games that are free to play, they could have charged like $25 a piece for them. And there are people that would have paid it. But the problem then is you have a roster of players and you have maybe 6 or 8. You know, you're buying certain characters. Maybe here and there you can earn one after a long period of time. And you have a roster of 6 to 8 characters versus 30 some. So, like, not a great feeling. But I was happy to hear that yeah, all the characters are going to be included, not just at launch, but during the course of the game itself. So, also, they plan on doing 2x2 releases. So it's not like one character is going to come out. 2 is the idea. So, they showed off yesterday Captain America, and he is absolutely ridiculous. They might actually have to nerf him already. I'm not kidding you. What I saw with the Captain America person playing him, when his shield is up, you just cannot hit him. And he can negate ultimates from other characters, including Punisher. He is insane. His vibranium shield is absolutely ludicrous. So I'm honestly expecting they're going to be forced to nerf him, but he still looks great. They did a great job with the design. The gameplay looks great. Basically, the way you stop Cap is wait for him to be attacking. In the middle of attacking, where he doesn't have the shield up. So it's like, you know, being thrown at somebody, or he's like punching the hell out of somebody. He doesn't have the shield up and he's not holding it to reflect. So that's basically when you have to attack him. He's crazy. He's crazy. And coming with Cap, the Winter Soldier. James Buchanan Barnes himself, Bucky, And his coolest feature, his ultimate, if he kills an enemy with his ultimate, he immediately gets his ultimate back. So if you know what you're doing, you constantly have access to Bucky's ultimate. So not quite as showy as Captain America, or as insane that he can like take on Magneto and Punisher pretty easily, but constantly having access to your ultimate is impressive. Okay. We're not done yet, everybody. There was another huge announcement I care about, I know a lot of PC players care about, and I'm actually shocked I can be happy about this announcement. Okay? Path of Exile 2. That's one of Diablo's largest competitors. They announced early access November 15th. November 15th early access, and this is where it becomes completely shocking. Apparently, it's for everything. Apparently, early access is Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. Because when they mentioned it in the early access announcement, they showed all those icons and no other information. So I was not expecting early access to hit console right away. Like even based on like when I was at PAX East, I was not like when I talked to someone there, it very much seemed like the console versions could be like a year out or even more than the PC version. So very excited about this. I think it was a very smart move, but it had to be expensive and difficult on their part to have all these versions being worked on and released at the same time. Now, why would they do this? Well, originally, they thought Path of Exile 2 was going to come out at some point in 2024. Like towards the end, I'm sorry, they thought it would come out at some point like 2023, like the end of 2023, very early 2024. That was the original idea. But then they announced that it had to be pushed back and it wasn't ready and all this, you know. So, Diablo 4, Vessel of Hatred, October 8th. I believe they're honestly trying to compete directly with Diablo. I think that's what they're doing. And Path of Exile 2, I think, is the game that's going to bring Diablo fans into Path of Exile. Basically, it's a seven chapter campaign. It looks gorgeous. It's on like Unreal 5. So just like Diablo 4, it's a beautiful looking game. It has these huge, gigantic bosses. So that's what I thought was really neat. A lot of the bosses in Diablo 4 are kind of like big, but they're not like, you know, screen size and stuff like that. Diablo Immortal is more about having gigantic screen size bosses. But the thing is this. There's going to be complexity, but it sounds like it's going to have better onboarding, and it won't be quite the level of complexity that Path of Exile 1 is now. It sounds like this new Path of Exile 2 is going to be more welcoming to new players. Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very excited. I actually just started a new character for the Guilds of Kulragar, I believe is the name of it. That's the new season for Path of Exile. I started a witch character. So that's been a lot of fun. Very neat to hear that that's coming out when it is. I was not expecting it. So, everybody, that is all the gaming news we have. And because of Gamescom, it was a lot. I know it was a lot of gaming news. Okay, so next up, we are going to toy around. Okay, and first off, I'll let everyone know this is not a huge week for toy announcements. So I got some cool things, but it's not going to hit as hard as some weeks when we show off the toys. First up, we have the Court of Owls box set from McFarlane Toys. As far as I know, they have not released an owl figure. I believe they released a Talon, but here you get one of the owls. That's one of the members of the Court of Owls, with a little owl, of course. Also, you get Red Robin and Talon. So, Tim Drake and Talon. $59.99. I think it is an Amazon exclusive. And again, I think that the owl figure is exclusive. I don't think that they've released one yet. So for me, that's the really cool part of this. Also, I don't believe I own Talon. I don't believe I have Talon. But so, yeah, this is a really cool box set. And for 3 7-inch figures from McFarlane Toys, $60 is not a bad price. Usually they're about $25, $30 a piece if they're the collector's type of McFarlane Toys. You know, it just sort of depends. But that's the first picture. Then we have a secondary picture showing all the accessories that come with. All the weapons and the cards. They have each one has a collector card. And then you have, it looks like a base for, I don't know if that's going to fit all 3 figures. I think that's a base. Or that could be something you put the card in. I'm not 100% certain on that. The thing that's at the top. I'm not exactly sure. But no, I think that's a really cool collection. Next up, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Mutant, I believe it's Mutant, is it Mutant Mayhem, I believe? The picture's small, I can't see it. But what's neat about it is you get a code for the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game that's coming out in, I believe, is November. And that game serves as the follow-in to the sequel, which I think comes out 2025 or 2026. So basically, if you liked the animated Turtles movie that came out last year, and you like playing Turtles video games, you're going to get a skin for a specific character with each of these figures. So that was the big thing, to notice that, oh, they're going to do a cross-market thing, but with the game. So it looks like they're going to push the game pretty hard. I hope it's good. I hope it's good. I think it's like $39.99, and I believe it comes out in November. Like, it'll probably get really good holiday sales, and I like the fact that it's actually going to be, like, you know, like canon to the new movie coming out. That's really neat. And finally, we have Nightwing. This is part of the Mezco 112 line. So incredibly detailed 112 figures. So in like that 6-inch scale. Because if you're looking at a 12-inch figure, that would be 1/6. 1/6. So I think these look great. The Nightwing is $95. There were a number of pictures. So the Mezco 112, think of it like a 6-inch version of a Hot Toys. But instead of spending $250, $280, whatever the Hot Toy figure is at a 12-inch, it's 6-inch, and they're under $100. So you get like 3 or 4 heads with this Nightwing, tons of weapons and accessories, a very well-looking designed figure, and I think it's really neat. I think it's really neat. Super Hour Media, well, hello. I see you're waving. So you're waving 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. I like to surprise Super Hour Media, a friend of mine. Weird time to join, talking about 6 and 12-inch figures. Hey, you're here to toy around. This is the point of the show where we toy around and we look at cool toys that are coming out, and sometimes are available for pre-orders now. Nightwing. Got Nightwing right here. And with that, everybody, we are actually done toying around. Now, we are going to look at the future of comic books. Going to look into our crystal ball at the future of comic books, all the way to 1 week from today. Okay, everybody. So, first up, we have X-Men number 3. X-Men number 3. I've read 1 and 2, and I gotta tell you, it's really neat to be at the ground floor of a new run of X-Men instead of being like lost and like trying to keep up. And now we're gonna find out how they got their factory / warehouse, and how safe it is, and how easy it is for an enemy to infiltrate their base of operations. And apparently Scott Summers on the cover is in the middle of having lunch. And the fun thing with covers of comic books is it's not always exactly what occurs in the comic, but this is a goofy, funny cover. This is the base cover. This isn't a variant. But yeah, I think it looks pretty cool, and I'm enjoying the new X-Men run. This is X-Men. Uncanny X-Men has been really good. NYX, which is with Kamala Khan. Attending college, and Younger Mutants. We will need to talk. Serious inquiry. Well, that sounds good. I can have a serious inquiry this evening if you would so like. Comic books will now be comic playable holographs. I would check that out. I'd be worried about the costs associated, but I would be interested to see how that would work. Okay, so that's X-Men number 3. Then we have Fire Bad! Bad Fire! It's my terrible Frankenstein's monster. Because remember, the monster is not Frankenstein. The doctor that made him is Dr. Frankenstein. He's Frankenstein's monster. Anyway, Frankenstein, based on the Universal version of Frankenstein, the comic book adaptation starts next week. Okay? And Michael Walsh is writing it and doing the art. And if you want to know what Michael Walsh's art looks like, he did this cover. I think it looks pretty awesome. He did a comic book called The Silver Coin, which was a real popular indie title. And this is the 3rd in the series. So Dracula was spectacular. In fact, they did a really cool hardcover release I highly recommend of Dracula. The art, and then also clever little minute changes to the original Universal depiction of Dracula. Very cool stuff. Very cool. Currently, you can get, written by Ram V, I believe, The Creature from the Black Lagoon. And I believe that's on issue 3 or 4. I'm not exactly sure where it is in the series. But yeah, here we have Frankenstein. Night of the Living Hoarder. Lumi, good to see you. So that is Frankenstein. And I love this cover. This cover kicks ass. They had at least 2 available, but I really like this one. And finally, Detective Comics issue 1088, the penultimate. And if you don't know what that means, it's the one before the final. So this ends Ram V's gothic opera that he's been doing in Detective Comics for, I believe, 24 issues. I think it's been 2 years, I think. And as you can see, Mr. Freeze, a snow globe. So if you like Mr. Freeze, you definitely want to check this out. Plus, while you're going to be a little bit lost, because, you know, it's at the end of this 2-year arc, this is the penultimate. So they're going to at least make some effort to have you understand what is going on before the big ending the month later, like next month. So But yeah, Detective Comics and Batman have been two of my favorite books, especially the runs that have been coming out recently, like Chip Zdarsky doing Batman and Ram V on Detective Comics. So, and this story is crazy. If you like Universal horror, I highly recommend checking out this run of Detective Comics, because it truly is a gothic opera with a family called the Orgums, which are kind of like monstrous and frightening, and music ties in a lot to this story arc. It's been pretty wild. And that, everybody, is the end of the future of comic books. Not completely, just for next week. Okay, now what you all might have been waiting for: the review of World's Finest number 30. Okay, so Dan Mora, I believe, is still doing the covers for World's Finest. This is a variant cover. This is a variant by Puppeteer Lee. And but Dan Mora no longer is really doing the art for the monthly book. He's on other books right now. I believe he's going to be doing, I think he's doing the Justice League Unlimited, actually. That might be where he's going right now. And this is very good, but it is a contained story. Like if you watch an episode of Lost where they kind of like, finish everything off in one episode, it's like a bottle story. Now, the term they use is a locked room mystery. A locked room mystery. So, there's a murder that takes place in Themyscira. And Batman, Superman, and Robin, they travel to Themyscira with explicit permission to be there, because mortal man has not set foot on Themyscira in a very long time. Okay? So it's a murder mystery, and there's a great twist having to do with the corpse that they find, and basically the control of people's minds, and a character that people like, and I believe was mentioned briefly or has a cameo in the second Wonder Woman movie, the Duke of Deception, is involved in here. Now, this is a really great single issue, so I highly recommend it for that. Okay? But this is not the beginning of the new story arc. Now, one of the big exciting things about this is it's Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And there's a concept called Trinity that involves all of them. And this is kind of like a lead-in to that, but this is not the story that is, all based on. However, next month we get a heavy hitter coming to this book. And again, if you're a fan of Batman and Superman, this run has been great. World's Finest has been a fantastic book. Okay? Eclipso, a very dangerous, very frightening villain, will be getting a story arc starting next month in World's Finest. So as much as I like this, especially if you're looking to just buy a single issue and to see, how Mark Waid handles the characters and everything like that, this is a great buy. But I think that Eclipso story arc is going to be excellent and possibly have repercussions throughout the DC universe because of how dangerous Eclipso is. So, okay, everybody. I want to thank you all very much for watching. Whether you watched live or at your leisure, on demand, you decided, hey, I'm having too good of a day. I'm feeling too good about myself. I think I'm going to watch some Hoarder. You might have made that decision, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, for whatever reason, if you wanted to see more of me, again, heaven only knows why you would. Twitch.tv/HoarderGamer. Right now, I'm doing Star Wars Lego. Not this minute, because I'm doing this show. But currently. I'm doing Star Wars Lego, the Skywalker Saga. I've been enjoying that. Very much looking forward to next week with Star Wars Outlaws. I'll be streaming that. And of course, you're going to get First Descendant and Diablo 4 if you watch my stream. And that might be, for some people, a reason not to watch my stream, and that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Tomorrow, if you want to see me and Xbox Live Mike, Games on a Plane. That's just gamesonaplane.com. We play games on a plane. It's all in the title. It's all in the title. No like trickery or anything. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much. I hope you have a great week. Again, I don't harp or preach on it, but if you like the show, feel free to sub. If you know anyone else that likes comics and someone with an off-kilter sense of humor, I guess, tell them to sub, Thank you very much, everybody, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.